Coming up on today's show, I'm taking a look at one of the Cowboys' biggest problems, specifically on offense, and if they've been able to fix said problem. I think they've at least tried to do it this offseason. Before we dive into this, if you want a very similar, even the same topic, just the defensive version of it, show it by sharing today's video. We will always do what the people want. Views are how we determine that. So if you want another one of these types of videos, show it by sharing today's show. I think it's really good, so I'd appreciate it if you shared it as well. Before we get into this, obviously there are multiple problems. It's never just one thing. And I think you can argue the biggest issue is probably ownership. I can't fix that. We can't fix that. So we'll skip over it. But this is something I have complained about in years past, and that is the run game. And not just against the overall run game, how they did, their efficiency, but the thing we all complain about, they won 10 games that year. They won 12 games. They lost in the playoffs again. I want to dial this in as to the big games, when teams dare them to run the football, when they try to take away CeeDee Lamb. How does the Cowboys' run game look? And my big takeaway going through all this, doing all the data crunching, it's not good. It's really bad. So we'll focus on the Mike McCarthy era. 23 games in loss with a healthy Dak Prescott. So it's McCarthy, healthy Dak. I think that's a pretty good sized sample. In losses, Cowboys average about 21 carries per game, 87 yards, a half touchdown per game. They're averaging just 4.07 yards per carry. They had 8 games total where they averaged over 4 yards. The median, the middle, there was odd number. So 3.47, 3.67. So about half the time you're getting 3.5 yards per carry, half the time you're not. That's bad, but that's a loss. The game script might be against you. So let's go on the good teams, right? How do you look against teams that are above 500 or playoff teams? And then we'll dial in just playoff here. 26 carries per game. So they do try to run it more. They obviously get more yards per game, but the yards per carry is essentially flat. Only 12 games total with at least 4 yards per carry, and the median yards per game is, again, 3.75. To put that number in perspective, where it would have ranked among all teams in 2024, and I'll do some tiebreakers, and if it's close, I'll give the higher number where it's rounding differences I can't figure out. It does include playoff games, by the way. 17th in carries per game, 21st in yards per game, 24th in average per carry. So they're a bottom 10 run game. That's what that number tells us. And in the playoffs, it's not really all that different. 26 carries per game. They did have a touchdown per game. This does include Dak rushing, too, to be fair. 4.13 yards per carry. Less than half you get to 4 yards per carry. The median's 3.67. To me, this indicates a very clear trend that in the big games, the big moments, the best teams, the games we want them to win, Dallas Cowboys struggle to run the ball. And teams are daring them to run the football, especially this past season and even in 2023. That's been a more notable trend as the offensive line has declined and didn't have prime Zeke anymore. We'll get into that in a little bit. But the Cowboys, teams want them to run the ball. They've given them favorable looks, and they can't do it. So we'll go again, more in depth in how they're going to try to fix this. But do you think the run game has been a problem? A for you agree, D for you disagree. When I say the Cowboys are being dared to run the ball, I'm looking at the box numbers. Stacked boxes, light boxes, and then neutral boxes fall in between in this category. Stacked boxes, the Cowboys faced the 24th most and 23rd most in 2024 and 2023. They faced light boxes at the 3rd highest rate in 2024. And they've been pretty highly ranked in neutral boxes as well. And if you're the old rules of football were neutral box equals run, Cowboys got away that little bit because they haven't been very good. Look at the run game splits. These are all per next-gen stats, by the way. The Cowboys averaged 4.6 yards per carry against the light box in 2024. That was 26th. They were 29th in the neutral boxes in 2024. They were actually better than most in stacked boxes, which was kind of a flip from 2023. But even light boxes, neutral boxes, they've been not a top 10 unit. I think opposing teams picked up on this. And they went, you know what? There's not a huge difference with a stacked box versus not a stacked box with this Cowboys ground game. That was especially true against the smart, good teams and defenses. which are the teams you typically play in the preseason. Like, it's one thing to run all over a Browns team that wins 3 games. It's more challenging when you get the Philadelphia Eagles, right? A lot more to come, including how the Cowboys are trying to fix this. But today's show is made possible by Chubbies. Summer is here, and that means it's time to let the dogs out. By dogs, we mean your legs, as long as you're not skipping leg day. When the sun goes down, you're heading from beach to dinner, wherever it is, the classic line swim trunks, the original stretch shorts, and of course the performance polo are perfect for you. The shorts come in long, short, and way short. The performance polo works for the golf course, the dinner, night out, maybe just even work if you're like me, for example. They keep you cool and comfortable. And the Lion swim trunks are perfect if you're in the beach or at the beach or in the pool. So they're sitting up for cannonballs, cocktails, casual Friday, the golf course. Chubbies has you covered. For a limited time, you're getting 20% off your order with code CHAT at chubbyshorts.com/chat. That's code CHAT at chubbyshorts.com/chat. Support our show. Let them know we sent you. Link will be in the comment section and the description of today's show. One of the things that head coach Brian Schottenheimer claims to want to do more and be more efficient with is running the football. That the Cowboys have brought in Schottenheimer, whose dad, of course, was a Marty Ball guy. He has said changing and making the ground game better is a key factor. Listen to what he had to say at the NFL Combine this year.
What about you guys think?
Yeah, I think offensively you try to build it, based on what your guys do well. I got in trouble for letting Russ cook a little bit back in Seattle, but some people got the joke, some people didn't. But no, again, at the end of the day, you have to be able to run the football. I think we've made a commitment that we want to be great on both sides of the line of scrimmage. That's a huge part of it. The way I say it is when teams know that you're going to run the ball, you have to be able to run the ball and conversely stop the run. But again, depending on how the roster is built and how it's constructed, we want to, be able to feature our guys and what they do well, and we want to be multiple.
Now, what Schottenheimer said does not mean it's going to be run, pass, because I hate run, pass with a passion. At least I hope it doesn't mean it ends up being run, pass. Otherwise, we've got a whole different conversation to have. I hope/think it means we're going to fix some of the run game failures, some of the issues that, as I laid out, the Cowboys have had up front. They've had issues being able to run the football. We'll break down where the Cowboys are trying to address this. But first, do you think the Cowboys' ground game will be better this year? Y for yes, N for no. To discuss this, what impacts the run game? And this is not in any particular order. It's kind of like you're creating a cocktail and you want to figure out what percentages of what go in. A competent passing offense is a must. Again, we can kind of look at what didn't work with the Giants and Saquon Barkley. They didn't have a good passing offense. Saquon was held back. I do think the Cowboys had that in place. You have to have a good offensive line. Cowboys, along with Emmitt Smith, was incredible. Your offensive line has to be good. It's hard to get efficient, effective, explosive ground games going if you're getting hit in the backfield consistently or you're getting hit early at the line of scrimmage. And as we will get into, that has been a core problem for the Cowboys' ground game as well. The offensive line has to be a huge part of this. You've got 3 first-round picks, a top 75 pick, and a highly paid right tackle, highly-ish paid right tackle, who's supposed to be at his best in the ground game. This unit has to play well. But if they're not put in a good position to play well from a schematic coaching perspective, how much does that really matter? And I think we've seen that over the years in Dallas. Look at the numbers last 5 years. These are the yards per carry per next-gen stats. Again, this is the McCarthy era. Before contact versus after contact. Cowboys were more likely to be a bottom 4, bottom 5 before contact ground game offense than they were a league average. They actually have done pretty decently after contact. They've been bad before contact. That tells me, hasn't your offensive line or your schematic issues been a factor? Like, if you're consistently near the bottom or bottom half of yards before contact, but you're consistently above average and after contact, Doesn't that point to the offensive line and the scheme, or both? I think the Cowboys are clearly trying to change things here. They invested a first-round pick in Tyler Booker, and several of their coaching hires point to this as well. We'll get to that, but we've got Cowboys videos for you each and every single day. Hit that sub button right now, youtube.com/@CowboysTV. Clayton Adams, before taking the Cowboys offensive coordinator job, had served as the Cardinals offensive line coach. And I think that the Cowboys are very much committed to doing what Adams was doing in Arizona. Look at their run game concepts. This is from John Oening over at PFF. They ran inside zone 20% of the time. Man, which kind of man gap, 18%. Outside zone, 17%. Counter, 15.9%. Pull lead, 14.2%. Power at 6.3%. That's 6 different concepts that got at least 6%. Then some quarterback sneaks, some traps, some trick plays, some draws. That's a stark contrast from the Cowboys. They ran zone concepts over 50% of the time. They didn't do many man gap concepts. I actually thought fit guys like Rico Dowdle, Deuce Vaughn schematically better. This is a very more, in Arizona, was a far more diverse run game, which I think is a positive thing. I don't just want to be the inside zone stuff. Just felt like it was constant, just right up the middle for 3 yards. I hate that stuff. And Arizona, despite not having that talented on an offensive line, in the 2 years Clayton Adams was their offensive line coach, and OC Drew Petzing gets credit too, don't get me wrong, they were second and first in yards before contact with Adams as the offensive line coach. You can't get any better than that. That tells me schematically they were doing some good stuff. Can Adams bring that over to Dallas? If he can, that's going to be massive for the Cowboys' ground game. And, of course, the last thing we'll mention here, and not necessarily least either, who gets the carries? You can have the best passing offense. You can have the best offensive line. You can have the best scheme. If you put me back there, it's not going to be a good ground game. But can you get enough out of a running back room that I'm not confident in? The Cowboys are betting on those first 3 things. I think especially the offensive line and the scheme being more important than who exactly is getting all the carries in your ground game. And I think there is some logic in that, if not even a decent amount of logic. The analogy I like to use is the run game is like a fire. You need the kindling. You need a match. That's your support system. That's the early things we mentioned. It's the offensive line. It's the play calls. It's the scheme. It's the quarterback is kind of the oxygen, where if you can't have a functional passing game, you might be able to light the run game, but it's not going to stay around for a while because you don't have enough oxygen to breathe. Then you can toss some gasoline onto the fire with a runner and have some explosive ability. The gas doesn't matter without the first stuff. Didn't we just see that with Saquon Barkley? It wasn't like he suddenly got wildly better in Philadelphia, but everything else around him allowed him to be the accelerant that the Giants simply didn't have a use for with the way that team was constructed. Now, I don't think Javonte Williams, Miles Sanders, Jaden Blue, Deuce Vaughn, Phil Maffa, any of these guys are pure gasoline that's going to have enough of a spark. But if everything else is good, there can still actually be a fire that doesn't get put out the first time something bad goes wrong against a good team. So what is your confidence level in the Cowboys ground game? Scale it for me from 1 to 10 in the comment section of today's show. Some final thoughts on the Cowboys hopefully fixing one of their big problems in terms of the ground game. I think the game of football is cyclical. It tends to go in circles. How long that loop ends up being, you don't really know until you're past it. I do think we're trending towards run games matter more again. That's not necessarily running backs, but the running games themselves. Teams are playing more too high stuff. They're playing more shell coverage. They want to limit the explosive pass plays that kind of became popular when teams were doing the Seahawks cover 3 stuff and having an extra man in the box. Now we're going back to the other side. You want to stop the too high shell stuff? Run the damn ball is actually a very good reason. You have the numbers in your favor. If teams dare you to run it, then run it. And then you get the safety to come back down, or they commit some more play action, and now your passing game gets unlocked, and it's all cyclical. I do think investing in the offensive line, with high-level draft picks especially, compared to backs, is probably smart and the way I would go about it as well. You still have to have good players. Again, you can't put me out there in the backfield, expect me, A, not to die, and also to have a competent ground game, and good coaches and good schemes. I actually want the Cowboys to make life easier on Dak Prescott and CeeDee Lamb. The reason why, go back to the let Russ cook stuff, why I was in favor of allowing Dak to cook, the offense was better because they couldn't run the ball. But if you're trying to make life easier on them by having a more competent ground game, it has to actually work. It can't be run, pass. We're trying to make life easy on the QB, so we're running it a lot early. Because if it doesn't work, okay, now you're in 3rd and long, and now all you've done is actually make life harder on your quarterback. I think that's been the case for this team far too often. Even in the big games, it's never just been one thing. So it's a variety of things. It's the defense, the offense, the quarterback, the penalties, the head coach, the run game, all of it. It all needs to work together in unison because it gets hard in the playoffs. That's why only one team wins a championship every single year, and it feels like 4 teams have a shot every year in the end. So we'll see if A, this is the plan as I suspect, and more importantly, if it works.